Okay, we're back. So last sketch, I talked a bit about wanting to explore a Max for Live solution to pausing and playing this playhead. Pretty much, when you hold space and then hold shift and then hit space, you basically pause the playback and then you start it and it doesn't start over versus if you don't hold shift, it starts over. And it's a real subtle feature, but if you got a lot of automations happening, then if you hold down that shift, instead of starting it over, when you start over from one, it sounds exactly the same every single time you restart. So if you hold down shift and hit space, it kind of picks up right where it leaves off as far as all the automation loops go. And to me, it makes a much more interesting sound. So anyway, I had done a little research, done a little digging around on the Max for Live site, maxforlive.com, and found this simple thing, and I wanted to see if this would work from the description. It sounded like it would. I'm not really sure what any of this is. It looks like very clip-specific type stuff. And so let's just hit play, and it looks like it's doing exactly what we want it to do. Okay, so I think now it makes sense to bust it open and hack it up a little bit. There's a lot of stuff happening in here, and wow, it really does look like a bowl of spaghetti that exploded. So looks like, okay, here's our play and pause, and we've got stuff coming from the API and going down to a live object. Okay, so it looks like these are all pretty much set up individually, and that means we don't really need, I'm just gonna take a hunch from past experience that we're not gonna need anything other than that stuff at the top. Yeah, and this will either just not work at all or work like a charm. Okay, so let's give it a shot here. Let me minimize this a little bit, and let's try playing it from here. Sweet, that looks to be good. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and save this as, and let's go ahead and put this in our projects folder, Sketchsplorations Max MIDI, and I'll call this transport pause. I realize I'm probably the only one that likes to use this pause effect in the way that I do, but for the sake of these sketches, I think this is something that we'll use a lot from here on out. So, okay, so let's close the presentation. Oops, looks like I've got some fun things happening with the internet. Anyway, let's go ahead and make this larger and in charger, and just move this down here, play pause, and we'll save that. Go ahead and freeze this. That means everything and all things external are contained within this. So for sharing purposes, it shouldn't cause any problems. Now that Max 8 is built in to the Ableton Live folder, things tend to work a lot more across the board, even when you don't have a patch frozen. So anyway, save that, and that's very promising. Okay, cool. So we'll call this transport fun, and bust out there's our transport pause there. Very cool. LFO MIDI, which the thing I love about this LFO MIDI is it also has a mapping function, which is super awesome. Let's try just random so we can get this thing starting, and that's interesting. It looks like it is starting from 1. Huh. Let's try, what do we got here? Let's try a rectangle. It's kind of a square wave, and it seems to be working as we want it. Let's try the sine wave. It looks like it's doing a lot of resetting. Very interesting to note. I guess I'll unfreeze this again. I froze too soon. Great way to find out what the heck is going on sometimes is to print, and let's see what's happening here. Control M. Oh, so we have a lot of the same number coming through. Yeah, let's try the rectangle again. I see. So this one is just on and off. So maybe until I figure out how to filter some of these things out. And off the top of my head, I cannot remember exactly what we do to do that. So I guess we're going to stick with this rectangle mode because it seems to be not resetting. I think if we wanted, we could drop another LFO MIDI and map from this one to the rate of this one and pull the rate down there, because wow, that's nuts. Even though it looks like, yeah, it looks like it's just kind of resetting because there's so much happening here. Maybe if we pull the rate down even more, pull this depth down. Let's pull the offset down for that matter. Controlling one LFO with another does take a bit of finesse. It can be a bit tricky. So that's a sine wave. Let's try the random in there. Maybe that's what I needed from the beginning. But seems to be continuing on. It hasn't reset yet, so that's cool. Okay, so in the process of downloading this initial patch, this FGZ DJ transport, whatever, and thinking about how I was going to set this project up, I had another idea. I mean, one of the things I really like about starting or pausing and unpausing the playhead is when you have feedback loops. When it stops, oftentimes you can get like these tails from the feedback, which can be really interesting or really obnoxious. I guess it depends on how you set up your feedback loop. So I guess we will try this. We will try to get some kind of feedback going. Final distortion. Let's start with some crackles. Very humble beginnings. Don't need those effects. And a gate. And I'm going to go ahead and group all this. And let's see if we can pull from itself, from this nested rack here. We'll call this feedback. And looking at to operator, feedback chain. Okay, cool. So I'm going to pull that down and turn this on. And the most obvious way to do feedback is to have a delay effect in there. And let's try. I suppose it's a bit difficult because the crackle, well, you can hear it stacking a little bit. And that reminds me, yes, a limiter is something to always consider at the end of your feedback loop. I also like to put a bit of a high pass filter. So just an EQ8 with a high pass set somewhere around here usually works. Really wish they had a built-in dynamic EQ. Gosh, I will predict that eventually Ableton will have a dynamic EQ. That is such a useful tool. There's no reason they shouldn't have something like that in there. But we made it this far without having that. So there are some good dynamic EQs out there in VST format. Tokyo Dawn Records makes a really great free one. Highly recommend theirs. I think it's Nova is the name of that plugin. Okay, so I'm going to put a little resonator in here to get some tones going. Always sounds super uninspired and generic out of the box. Save that, and let's see if we get any feedback. Maybe we need to pull these down. So we've got it coming from pre-effects, and it doesn't look like we get a post-effects option trying to pull it from the parent. So I think that we want to, at that point, obviously turn our gate down, because if we set this, once we set this up, it'll be blasting through. I think we will set up another group inside of here, and we'll call this feedback siphon. And so let's see, we get feedback siphon, pre-post. Yeah, we got all of our goods there. So post effects on that. Okay, yep, immediately. Nuttiness. Yeah, and this is set to 2 milliseconds, so that has a lot to do with the sound. Okay, neat. So, and you know, if you want to make your own little looper effect, you know, you can also do this. Do it this way. You want to have a utility. Well, I guess you can use the gain here to kill anything coming through. Or gain is more like a feedback control knob, and then you would need another utility to kill the volume going in. So we have this sound coming through here. The gate is pulling audio from this and feeding it back through as a loop, as we've done. And if we turn our mix down, I think we also kill our feedback loop. Of course, we could use the feedback on the delay as well, but you know, unlike Bitwig, we can't insert other effects inside the delay routing, which would be super sweet. I wish Ableton would have something like that also. But until they implement something like that, we can always just use this method. So and we could make another chain here that is our dry through if we want. So we can just hear our dry happening, and this could be the feedback. It seems as though, let's see, did we get something else going on funny here? Post effects, so we don't have, so we have to have some of this mix down to get the original through. Okay, that makes sense. So if we don't have any of the original coming through this mix, then we're not going to get our feedback loop. So this is essentially our feedback knob here. So we don't need this after all. Okay. And we could close off the feedback loop by just throwing the mix up 100%, which will essentially, you know, as long as we keep our gain, we're writing our gain, you can see here, we're going to get feedback forever, as long as our gain holds out. So I'll just keep that there. Okay, so I had this silly idea, and this is a MIDI effect. I had an idea of an audio effect that would mute the volume of itself, I guess, inside of the max effect when the transport hits stop. So let's start with an empty Max for Live device, and as we inserted that, it created a bit of a buffer. Oops. And if I remember correctly, it was the Max for Live, see, M4L API, I think it was observe transport. Let's have a look inside. If you double click on it, you get holding down control and double clicking, you can see what's going on inside. I think, okay, so I think we want a load bang. This sort of initiates this thing, and then let's do a print just to, oh, I did not want that. Print, let's get rid of this and see what's coming out of here. And this should be sort of following our transport, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't look like it's sending out anything. Oh, okay, so I double-clicked the load bang, holding down control, and now it initiated this. So this just needed to be initiated, and now it looks like we're getting stuff coming out of there. Okay, so since it's 1 and 0, that makes it very, very easy. Sorry about this this sound here. Maybe I'll just go ahead and put in modulation here. And repitch, just see what happens. Okay. We need to create a multiply, which is the asterisk. Multiply two numbers, but we need this little tilde because that means it's an audio. It'll operate at the audio rate, which anytime you see one of these green pipes, it's an audio signal. And then this is just kind of like a control signal, as they call it, which is it just operates at a different, like this operates at the audio sample rate. So anyway, that's more max theory and I guess information than we want to dive into for now. So I'll just put this audio, yeah, and we should hear cutoff. And since there's nothing coming through here, I think it assumes 0. And yeah, we need to redirect some new sound in. All right, so let's save this as, I think I hear it. Yeah, as this stops, I hear the audio stopping. Well, let's save it as, I think I needed to put a, I always forget when building stuff, you have to, right off the first, you have to go down to View and choose Open in Presentation, or else things will not work 100% properly. So let's try Presentation View. Okay, so we see nothing in there. We don't have anything added. Let's add this to Presentation View, and we'll call this Transport State. And I need one of the same, oh, that's not the one. Where is that button previously from? That's not it. Well, this one could just have to do, I guess. We just kind of need to be able to see, okay, so B is on. And I'm thinking we could inspect this and change it to, let us see, maybe say something different than A and B. It could be off and on, perhaps. Running out of screen real estate. So many options. I mean, you can just dive deep. Okay. Let me pull this over. Yeah, finally. A, B, A, yeah, value 1, A, B. Okay, so on, I think A is off. B is on. Cool. And we could also actually, yeah, on, off, play, pause, whatever. And now we need to replace these with this. Okay. Thanks for being patient while I indulge myself in some good old-fashioned Max for Live nonsense. Most of the time it takes me hours and hours. Well, luckily this is an easy task in Max for Live. I would definitely spare anybody the trauma of having to sit there and watch me fuddle about in Max for Live. Playhead controls volume on, off. Sure, that'll do. Now let's just make sure we've got things in our, yeah, we want to add this to the presentation. That's good enough for me. Transport state. Let's go ahead and freeze this and save it. And it looks like it's taken in there. Very good, very good. And it's working. It's alive. Okay, so now we can try and play with this silly idea that I had earlier. I'm getting some feedback in. Let's put that there. Cool. We're definitely getting a lot out of the left side at this point. Yeah, I'm always curious, like, what could be causing something like that? Is it happening here in the delay? Is it something to do with this? And if I turn this off, it sounds like no. I think where it's coming from is, well, I'm not sure where it's coming from. Where it's just the left side versus right side. If I pull this the width down right in here, what happens? So possibly out past here is where we might be getting some of this. Cool, and I think that this we could stand to trick out and put like a line object inside there, and that adds a bit of a ramp to our on and off. Because it sounds a bit clicky, but maybe I'll do that later. Or put this after it. Neat. Okay. Let's drop in a. First, I'm going to save and drop in. Just hang sometimes when it saves. It's really odd. Yeah, it's on this PC. It doesn't do that on the laptop. So strange behaviors. All right, let's choose the random. Let's definitely slow this thing down. And I want to map this random to our note here. So I think if we change this note, we're going to get some different things happening with our feedback. So let's close this one down. It sounds like we've got a pretty decent little feedback thing happening there. I don't think we need that or those yet. And we can close that down. Sometimes you just got to move around a bunch of knobs inside of a feedback loop to get a sense of like what exactly is happening, and what you can do to change the sound of the feedback itself. It's a bit of trial and error. So maybe with this rate up a little more, we could just also smooth it out some. And I think as we're stopping this, it's doing some interesting. Cool. Sounds like it's a lot more behaved as far as our left and right goes. So let's try to drop a phaser in there. Yes, phaser. Just sometimes I just, you know, my brain pauses like when I save Ableton. Like some CPU cycles are getting used up trying to figure out, you know, some other idea that pops into my head, and I'll start to think about like, how am I going to make that happen? It's quite ridiculous. But that is the fun and the challenge, I think, of doing these sketches, is trying to see if I can pull off explaining the ideas as well as it has been an interesting challenge, and I do think it's a healthy thing to try to do. I don't think I want to do it forever, but for now it's fun. Again, my current goal is to try and get to somewhere around maybe 50 of these sketches, and then I don't know, we'll see from there, honestly. I'm not gonna set anything in stone, of course. There's no point in locking yourself into, you know, mouth writing checks that yourself can't cash. All right, cool. Let's duplicate this so we could have this also here, cutting off sound. And that was interesting. It looks like none of the transport stuff copied over, so maybe that's just a bug. Let's see, transport pause, we had it in audio. It was a audio clip recorder, playhead controls volume on and off. That sounds about right. Yeah, I'm not sure why like holding down control and creating copy that way didn't work for whatever reason. So we're getting a bit too much obvious, I don't know, I wanted more randomness in there. And so maybe we pull the rate down here, but it looks like we could also get a little more nutty and, you know, have this LFO controlling this LFO. There's no reason why you can't have a bunch of LFOs at work all together. So if I pull this offset down, I think, and the depth down a bit. Okay, so this is a bit more of like a behavior I think I'm okay with. I think I want to fix this so that we can use the random function, but I'll have to save that for a rainy day. I'd rather just get quick to the to making sounds, honestly. Awesome. So I'm gonna group these together. Actually, let's group them here as an instrument group, and I can move these into their own. Let's create a new chain. I can make them in their own chain. We can do anything we want. So we've got this. Actually, I don't even need to group this now. We can ungroup that. You're basically noisemaker. I think it could be cool to also put an LFO controlling that. I will say the more LFOs I put in a project, the slower, the more clunky it tends to behave. And these things also do use a bit of CPU. Cool. Let's add some operator into the mix there, into our feedback. You know, we still could put a dry through here. Yeah, it almost sounds better when this noisemaker is not coming through dry, but only into the feedback. So one weird way we could remedy that is let's group these. Just want to try this idea out. Pull this over here. I'm going to put a utility before the vinyl distortion and mute it, so nothing can come past this. And now I'll make another, we'll call this, well, this can be noise, and this can be everything else through. And we could put a mapping on here. We'll call this dry volume. And we could also turn this noise section down, even though it's being controlled by the playhead. Also with this, we'll first we have to map down sibling up to the parent. Kind of annoying, but what can you do? Okay, so we'll call this noise volume. You notice when you put a space in the titles, it separates them for you. Cool. So as long as we got playhead action. Yep. And now we hear our dry, and our dry, which is the operator right now, is also going into the feedback loop itself. Stuff is getting crazy. It's going through this channel essentially. So. Now, I want to see what happens if we put a step sequencer before this. I'm going for the look mom, no notes, no MIDI, no automation. I'll just we could hack this step sequencer to run off of a metro, which means as our transport is being stopped, this thing would still run. Why on earth would anyone do that? That is a really good question. I have no idea. But why not? I suppose that could be useful. We could get a steady beat or something, you know, using a bunch of the MIDI effects after the step sequencer. That sure is, it sounds so deliberate when it stops, you know. It's kind of interesting, like it sounds very compositional or something. Psych. That's pretty funny. We could put after this sequencer, we could put the delay effect, and that will continue notes on. I'm not sure what that will sound like. Of course, we have just, you know, one note coming through. We can add a randomizer and a scale. We can limit which notes it will play and which notes it won't play. Just kind of arbitrarily pick some. I want to try a little trick. Let's map this to feedback, and I want, when the feedback is at 100%, for no notes to be able to enter through. And I could almost imagine that if we group this, we remove that so we just have an empty group. We call this gate. We put this speaker on there and map this to that. Or actually, we'll go ahead and, because I think this, if I'm correct, this speaker will only work at the halfway mark. And I want it to basically work right around 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to mute everything coming through here. And we're basically hearing what's coming out of the simple echo. And I want to map the macro so that it's, I think if we put it, oh no, I did not want to map that. I wanted to map the on-off switch there. So tricky. I think it's 126 and 127. It will turn it on. So there. Now we're feeding notes into the simple echo from the step sequencer. And if I push this up, then we should hear some notes, but it's basically what's coming through the simple echo. So if I mute this, we shouldn't hear any notes coming through. It would be interesting to create another Max for Live device that uses this mapping so that when the transport is on, we can control knobs to do things. I will save that for another time. I'm sure that would be fun to try to build. But would probably take forever. Because off the top of my head, I can't. Alright. Now I think we need to play with stuff inside the feedback effects. Oh, this is our siphon. I don't think we really need to do anything there, although we could put effects inside of that. Let's get an LFO onto that. I'll go ahead and duplicate this one because it's got settings close to what we want. And no smooth. turn the mapping on. Let's jump over here and just click that. Awesome. Let's go ahead and offset it. I don't want it to be exactly at 0 or 1 millisecond ever. There's a very recognizable tone coming out of the delay effect when it is set to 1 millisecond. So we need to pull it up a little more. So, also need to mess around with the sound of this because it sounds pretty generic. I'll try playing with so the pitch up an octave. What does this sound like? So let's feed some new notes in there. Definitely very generative at this point. About a little corpus. Haven't messed with this effect too much lately. And let's see if we can get a little volume on our feedback. What have we built here, and how can we control it? Honestly, it's kind of running with a mind of its own. We could turn off the transport fun thing and just, you know, this will just leave the transport playing, so we'll constantly get notes and things coming through. And the reason why we have to have this linked up to LFO is if we were to automate this, when the playhead stopped, it would never automate to turn back on. Because automation is pretty much controlled by that transport. Although we, I think, could still automate edit MIDI map. Yeah, it doesn't even look like I need to set this up to be able to automate it. So how do we do that? I guess we'll go into the inspector, and I think we just need to fill out some information. Forms. Call this transport on off. Looks like automation is stored is set properly, and then we'll just, yeah, maybe transport pause, and then let's try that out. Freeze. Presentation mode. Save and close. Still no automation option. It's in there somewhere. We're gonna find it. Okay, this is the last time I try. If we don't find it on this round, if we don't get to work, I'll just have to fix it later. Visible to mapping. There's so many options here. Ranging them on off. Yeah, AB. We are set to automate. Defer output automation. Could just be the nature of this particular live toggle. I mean, it's a live object, so it should work. Let's see, just, yeah, none, modulation mode. Maybe we need to just do absolute. Initial enable. Let's try that. Okay. I don't work in Max enough to have everything memorized. I really do need to spend more time in there. In the trenches, it is certainly not my, it's not as fun as making cool sounds, if you ask me. Okay, so we'll save that one for a rainy day. Maybe we'll just focus in on trying to get some cool sounds coming through here. Now, it looks like now we need to remap to this because we lost our mapping. And it would probably should trick out this this other Max thing that we built so that we can switch it so that when the transport is off, it lets the volume through. So we have that option there. So I think that could be cool in some cases. So many ideas. Oh my gosh, so many things we could play with. Probably time to start messing around with some automations. And let's pull this one out here. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. There we go. And then automate you. Oh, looks like we need to turn that back on. Ah, interesting. So, okay, so when our transport is being automatically messed with, it looks like, oh, it looks like we're getting automation on these. That's weird. It's not what we want. I swear Max for Life can be so squirrely. You really gotta... You gotta be really like a ninja with it. So let's delete that. Don't want that there. Does some really funny things when that transport stops. So we can always just do this by hand, the old-fashioned way. So So I think it's this corpus. It's bringing a lot of weird, kind of almost obnoxious. Let's set these up to be all separate. Gotcha. I think at 50% we'll get some notes through, and we'll also get this thing looping as well. Let's try some long notes. Some really high notes. All right, and if we push our feedback all the way up, now let's try pulling down our dry volume. So L time, I think we need to adjust this one to go a little higher. Remove a knob just barely a little bit. It's crazy what kind of stuff will pop out. Let's give some, see what happens if we push this one way up. This reverb just sounds terrible. We need some finessing. That is for sure. When you hit the invert on the auto pan setup as a tremolo, it almost sounds like a reverse effect. It's kind of cool. Can be. pretty nutty. We got a lot of cool effects automating the algorithms of the operator. But sometimes it can be, you know, not great sounding, and you just gotta keep futzing about until something happens. As you can see, it's not easy to control feedback type. This situation also is a really unique and unusual type of setup that I don't normally work with. I just had this whim of an idea, and I think it, you know, it sounds somewhat unique. But it also is, you know, I'm feeling like, in terms of, yeah, having that random transport on and off is throwing me for a loop. I'm like, oh, I'm expecting to hear it not stop, or it almost surprises me when it does a lot. So, noise volume, let's just double check. So the noise, also throw a reverb after this, just to give it a little more tail instead of just cutting off. There you go. Now you can hear the noise continuing on with that tail. So at least there's something kind of filling the space a little bit. That's crazy. Crazy, crazy. We do need to get this feedback and modulation happening so it doesn't constantly feedback all the time. And I can hear the pipe setting definitely adds a bass line that's make this more of a solid shape random. And how about an auto pan? Slash tremolo, set to invert. I think I want to control this now with a with an LFO. So let us duplicate, hit X and then map, and drag to our. You back on. Let's make sure our settings are all proper here. Yep. Let's give it a bit more of a speed there. I want to map to this tremolo also, and I want to see if we get the ability to modulate, if the modulation is still happening. And I mean, it looks like it kind of is, so that's pretty neat. I think I want to pull up the offset on that one a little bit. Pull the smooth down also. Definitely a lot of fascinating things going on, and it's hard for me to almost tell where things are happening. This is a beast, an absolute beast. Very, very unusual, but I kind of like it, honestly. It's one of the weirder things we've done in terms of timing and So I'm just going to create a real quick tonal. So we choose the OSR and we push the res up. We should get some kind of, I guess we do need a bit of a crackle coming through there. So there's a real easy way to make a sort of tonal generator. So we have a bit of an ambient layer going on at the same time. Kind of nice to have a bit of a constant tone happening while all this timing cacophony is going down. If we were doing a live performance, we could just map a MIDI note to turn this thing off while the playhead is going, so we don't get the constant start and stops. A bit easier, I think, anyway, to edit while this playhead is kind of going constantly. But you can also tell that these sounds stopping every now and then kind of does help create some breathing space. Let's put in a envelope follower on this EQ. Let's set it here and then map it to the gain. I think we need it. I like this because you have multiple options. What else should we map to this? Could do anything here. Map all the way across to here. And now we need an EQ8. A lot of bass coming off of this. Tons of bass as we pitch things down with this. I am curious if I map this to the transport, if something... So... Yeah, I almost don't think that makes sense because this thing isn't going to be running... Well, unless we use this feedback loop. I'm not sure if it's actually working. So let's kill that mapping. Not want to do that. I wanted to put this before the simple echo. So this is coming out of our simple echo, which may actually not be working as the transport is off. I'm curious if we turn off sync mode. So the sync mode is actually controlled by the transport. That's why we weren't getting any. So let's definitely compress this. And I did have a lot of gain coming through here anyway. That is a lot of high end there. I think we definitely want to turn down some of this. And also in here, we're getting a lot of try a different tempo. A lot more textural. Way more ambience, way less. Sounds like some alarms going off. Maybe we'll try with the square instead. Wow, where did it just dump this compressor? My gosh. I'm dragging and dropping and things are just kind of just dropping it wherever. Let's turn this off. So this way, our MIDI note echo doesn't. Well, it doesn't take much to make this thing go crazy. I think a lot of the sounds are coming from. Oh, hey. I think my computer is actually frightened of what's going on. So, wow, all these MIDI LFOs are kind of glitching out a little bit. Let's see if we can set this up at just exactly some easy division. And we'll map this to here. Cool, so we still get notes even when our transport stops due to this simple echo. So that's kind of useful. And we could turn this whole thing off every now and then if we want that effect to stop or less notes to happen. So when this thing stops, we should hear less. Yeah. Let's definitely muck about with that. Maybe now I'm hearing a little bit too much distortion coming from the drum bus. Probably because we have a lot of bass pushing through there. Sidechain this from our instrument rack. And just go post effects. We'll put this right before the reverb so we get a bit of tail after our gain reduction. Slow that one down. A lot of randomness happening in all of this. Let's save it, and I want to see what happens if we group all this stuff together. At least group these two, our sound generators. Keep all our mappings and stuff. Very good, very good. I'm gonna put a tremolo after this. Let's try a tremolo here as well. Slow tremolo here. So we'll definitely space things out a bit. So, where are we going with all this? Now it's really matching up with the video. Let's try a little ambient tone in there. Curious if we drop some of this ambient tone into a looper, if the looper will end up being affected by the playhead, because right now we have song control, none, tempo control, so I'm not sure what'll happen with this looper. So it looks like it does stop when our transport stops. Okay. Thought maybe it would just run independent, and I think there are other plugins that will load samples that will run independent of a transport. Easiest way to create a tail, obviously a delay. A lot of strange things happening right now, and I'm not even sure where they might be coming from, but that's kind of the fun of it. It's a little wild, untamed. Awesome. So I think I'm good with this one for now. We did some really fun, weird stuff here. Some ideas that I think I'd love to play around with more down the road. Not really sure how or when, but hope you guys had as much fun with this as I did. Until next time.